The following is a Spirit Street production.
Oh, man, it is that time, people. August is here. Camps have started. Football, it is back, and that's what we are going to be talking about from here on out, unless, of course, something pops up that we need to talk about. Ugh. But no more realignment. It's all about football for the time being, people. We got some big non-conference games that the Big 12 can really take advantage of here and kind of step forward. We're going to count down from 12 to 1 today, talk to you about what are the biggest non-conference games for the Big 12 this season. This is the Big 12 Insiders.
Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show, presented by Synergy Financial Partners. Now let's go to booming North Texas, home of Studio 73. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. This is your man, Big B, along with Tim Fitzgerald. Fitz, how are you doing today, my man?
Good. I can tell football's here. I've been busy, and it's wonderful.
Yes.
You know, the summer's great, and you get in your R&R as best you can. Freaking conference realignment. And then you get ready for football, and by the time it's here, you're ready, and I am ready for some games.
Absolutely. I'm ready for this to get going. Just ready to just start talking football versus a bunch of stuff that, quite frankly, most of us don't even understand. So let's just get into the football aspect of it. So today we're going to talk about, we've got some non-conference games, some early games. One's kind of in the middle, but we're going to count down from 12 to 1 what the biggest and, to me, the most important games of the Big 12 season are this year. So we'll count those down. And like I said, there's an opportunity for the Big 12 to make some statements,
Right.
to really make some statements that, hey, we're still a viable conference here. Pay attention to us. We still got some good football. So I think
there's
that's
also the opposite of that for some maybe lesser schools, if you want to put it that way. It's kind of rough to have big wins over the Big 12. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that would be disheartening, to say the least. There is usually some of those upsets. Let's hope that the Big 12 doesn't have any of those this year. Let's hope for that. So let's get at this. So first off, we're going to start down from 12 to 1 on the list as far as the games. Now, look, North Dakota State against Colorado, it's basically the first college football game that's really going to be on TV. It's going to be highly publicized. It's on television. I believe it's on a Thursday night. Colorado should win the game if they have more talent than North Dakota State. But we've talked about this one before. North Dakota State's going to come in prepared. They're going to come in disciplined. They're going to come in and play extremely hard. If Colorado doesn't match that along with the physicality, they're going to be in some trouble here. So we'll see right off the bat how focused this new Colorado football team is.
Well, Deion Sanders has been on the record saying he doesn't understand what culture is. He doesn't need that. Doesn't apply to his team. Just be better than the other team. He's going to run headlong into culture. And that's what North Dakota State's been about. Sure, they're not quite as salty as they were when Chris Kleiman was head coach, but they're still very good, and they know how to win. They expect to win, and they're going to give Colorado everything it can take.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's actually going to be a fairly good game. I think it's one of those where it's going to be close at the half, unless Colorado is a totally different team than what we know them to be or what they have been. If they're totally different, then, the game could get away from North Dakota State, which for Big 12 fans, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good, because while we want to see good football, I think everybody wants the conference to do well. And whether you like Deion or not, you need Colorado to be better. We just need them to be better for the conference sake. So moving on, the next thing I've got is South Dakota State against Oklahoma State. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, why wouldn't you put Arkansas on here? First of all, I think South Dakota State might be better than Arkansas. That's number one. And number two, I just think this is a better matchup. Look, Oklahoma State's better. It means a lot more. To me, it means more. I think it's where we're going to see how good Oklahoma State really is, Fitz. I think that's where this thing is, because South Dakota State's a good football team.
Well, they're the best in the FCS right now. They've supplanted North Dakota State with that. It's an incredible rivalry, one of the great rivalries of college football as you look at it. But this is a really good team. It's a team that expects to win national titles. Oklahoma State's a much better team, but we saw them kind of have a roller coaster ride last year. And to get this challenge early in the year, and it's not the Arkansas game, in which they will be very excited about and pointing towards, this one could sneak up and get them.
Correct. Oklahoma State, their problems last year early on in the season was quarterback issues. Didn't know who they were going to have. And whether you like Alan Bowman or not, first of all, he had a pretty good year last year. Second of all, he is the starter. There is no, well, he might be the starter. He's got to battle it out for a couple of games. There is none of that this year. So I expect Oklahoma State to have a much, much better start to the season than they did last season. Next up on the list, I got Texas Tech at Washington State. I like this one because, first of all, there's been talk of Oregon State and Washington State possibly coming into the Big 12. I think that's crazy talk, just me personally.
Me too.
It's unfortunate, but sorry, that's not the way the Big 12 should go, that direction. Either way, I think it's a good game for Texas Tech, number one, because I still believe Washington State's a pretty good football team. I'm not saying they're great, but I still believe that they play some pretty good football up there. The game's on the road, and Tech got off to that slow start last year, and I think they need to get this game and get this victory to say, hey, you know what? Last year was a fluke. We are going to be contenders in the Big 12, and this would go a long way, Fitz, in saying that.
You're right. And this is going to be a game Washington State has circled to prove a point about getting left out of realignment and all that. So there's going to be a lot on the table for both programs, both what they represent. I was about to say both conferences, but the Pac-2, which is basically independent, against the Big 12. It's going to be, I think this game's going to have a little heat to it. I think they're going to get after each other a little bit.
Yeah, I do too. I really do. Like I said, I had Washington State, good program, went through some changes, obviously transfer portal, getting left out of Power 4 conferences, unfortunate, but they may be playing with the chip on their shoulder. And they may look at this as a real opportunity for them to say, not just to the Big 12, but to the nation, hey, we belong. Somebody come and grab us because we belong with the big boys. So we'll see what that game. I think it's a pivotal game for both, but I think it means much more to Texas Tech. They got to have that win, especially on the road.
I'd agree.
Next game up at number 9 here, I've got TCU and SMU. I know there's a lot of Big 12 fans for some reason that don't believe that SMU is going to be good. They were good last year. They're going to be good this year.
Yep.
Their recruiting has taken off. I remind people, Fitz, and maybe people don't understand, SMU sits right in the middle of Dallas. And the last time I checked, the DFW has extremely good high school football around the area. They start getting some of those guys to stay home now that they're in the ACC. SMU can be a player in this thing. This is a big game, not to mention it's a rivalry game with TCU and SMU. This is a big game, Fitz. It really is.
It is. These two schools don't like each other. I mean, they're kind of mirror images of each other in some ways. Supposedly religious schools that are less than religious now, that have smaller attendance in the DFW Metroplex. And let's put it this way, rather a wealthy student body.
Yes.
So there's a lot of look in the mirror to this game, and they don't like each other. But now we layer in, Big B, the thought of conference rivalry between the ACC and Big 12 as the two conferences move to be the third conference and maybe the third survivor in this entire game of realignment. SMU is a good football team. Their fans will tell you that, and they tell you that very vehemently on the Twitter machine. They haven't made many friends around the Big 12. Even the ACC is beginning to comment on their fans. So I think the Big 12 will be more engaged in this game than ever after the last 2 years of realignment stuff that has had SMU on the fringe.
Right. Yeah, I believe that as well. I think TCU's got to win this football game.
I
I
agree.
really do. I think this is a big step for them. You can say that, yes, SMU is moving up to the ACC first year, but they're a good football team. Again, you mentioned it. Big 12 versus ACC. Can't lose this game. The conference, you just can't go lose these games, Fitz. I'm sorry. It's just one of those that we have to win to ensure that the Big 12 has its input on being one of the elite conferences. It just has to go win this game. So, before our first break here, now I mentioned this team before, Oklahoma State in the Arkansas game. Now, I've got a little bit higher on the list. I think the reason that I do, again, I still believe South Dakota State is a better team, but I've got Arkansas on the list because the perceived around the nation is that Arkansas is I shouldn't say good, but they're in the SEC.
Right.
That's the perception. So Oklahoma State beats them, and they will probably beat the brakes off of them. It's good for the conference. And they need to go beat the brakes off of them because I don't believe Arkansas is really good. I believe Oklahoma State is going to be really good. I put this higher. I put it at number 8 on the list just for the simple fact that they're an SEC school in the nation. They will see that and think, okay, well, Oklahoma State's better. They're beating an SEC school. Whether it's true or not, whether they're any good, it's not our problem. The perception sometimes is reality.
What's bizarre is there's a lot of very well-versed journalists or creators in the world of college football that recognize that Arkansas isn't very good for the ACC.
Correct.
But they still translate Arkansas probably being better than anyone in the Big 12, which is patently absurd.
Yes.
But they kind of go with that and they lean on that. And they've proven over and over again that the ACC and Big 12 are really competitive with every school in your conference except the very top crust. And yet they judge their entire pie by that crust. And honestly, a lot of that pie is not that good. And it's just the reality. You all can't be good in one conference. And I think Arkansas is a spiraling program that keeps hoping and wishing that Sam Pittman will get it going, and it just hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened. Probably not going to happen. I think there's probably a lot of Arkansas fans that are still surprised he has a job. Desperation. They brought back Bobby Petrino. Lord have mercy. I mean, you talk about make it make sense, Fitz. Jiminy Christmas. That is the definition of desperation. But you know what? If it works and if the president of the university is okay with it, then we should be okay with it too. I still believe Oklahoma State blows them out. And that'll be good for the Big 12. We're going to take a quick break here. On the other side of this, we'll get to the countdown. Again, we're counting down the top Big 12 non-conference games of this season. This is the Big 12 Insiders. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the mission is to change the way Americans plan for their financial future. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to Studio 73.
All right. Welcome back to the Big 12 Insiders. Again, this is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald. We are counting down the top 12 Big 12 games, or non-conference Big 12 games of this football season. We are at number 7, Fitz. And at number 7, I've got Kansas State at Tulane. Now, a lot of people will think, well, Tulane, they're not going to be as good. They got a new coach, new system, all that stuff. Tulane, if you just take a little bit of a dive, 30 seconds of research, you'll see that Tulane still has a lot of good football players on that roster. The game is on the road for Kansas State. This is one of those games that you talked about, Fitz, where a team not in the Power 4 conference beating a team that is. This is a stumbling block that Kansas State can't afford. Look, Tulane came to Manhattan 2 years ago and won. Can't happen again. Just cannot happen. They got to go down there and handle business.
Yeah, that game kind of turned the season on its ear, but it also seemed to wake the Kansas State Wildcats up a little bit and got them going as they ended up winning the Big 12 championship. But you end up what-ifing quite a bit if they hadn't lost that game, where they had been in the mix of everything. and they were on the outside. They got sent to the Sugar Bowl where they got pretty good whooping, according to the final score. And it's a revenge game in some ways, but it's kind of lost it. Different quarterback, different coach. The main things that haunted you from that game in 2022, but still a really good football team, and you're on their home field, although it's not much of a home field. It still will probably have a lot of purple in it, but it's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, it'll be a fun game. The one thing about it is that Kansas State is just on the cusp, I believe, of being in that upper echelon of groups of college teams. I'm not saying the Georgia and the Alabamas and the Ohio States, but in the second tier, they're probably near the bottom of that second tier. To get up, these are games you can't lose. To move up your profile, you can't lose these type of football games. So got to be focused. And again, looking at it from a Big 12 standpoint, it's not a game that Kansas State can go down there and lose and have the conference look well. Just can't happen.
You're right.
Next on the list, and this one, maybe it could be higher. I don't think so. I think it's in the right spot. As far as a rivalry game, I would definitely put this one higher. But as far as non-conference, and I think it's because I don't think Pitt's very good, even though it's a super big-time rivalry. West Virginia against Pitt. Again, this is another game, Big 12 versus ACC, but I think West Virginia is better than Pitt, and I think they handle them, but they need to handle them, Fitz.
Absolutely, they do. This is a huge rivalry game, the backyard brawl. It's the Hatfield and McCoys of Upper Appalachia. It's going to be something else. They're going to absolutely rip into each other like they do all the time. The two home crowds have great cheers and chants that we can't say here. It's not necessarily always family friendly, but this is a true rivalry. These are two schools that are very close to each other who just don't like each other and have wildly different cultures about their schools.
Right.
And I think this is a huge game for West Virginia to establish themselves. I love West Virginia's scheduling. They man up every year, and this is one of those games.
This is one of those games. You may or may not see West Virginia later on in this list with another game. That'll be nameless for now. But I love West Virginia. Their scheduling too, Fitz. It's look, this is who we're going to play. This is how we're going to get good. Number one, it's good for recruiting. We're always playing the top competition. It could be tough when it comes to the win-loss record, but we're willing to take that chance because we think we're that kind of program. I like it. And I'll be honest with you. I think down the road, maybe in a year or two, the NCAA or college football playoff, it's going to force, and all this conference realignment, it may force teams into playing this many Power 4 schools. It might force you to do that.
I agree.
And they're playing a bunch of them. There's a couple other schools that are doing the same thing. So good for them. Good for them. Next up on the list, Colorado at Nebraska coming in at number 5. Big game. I know there's going to be people that say Colorado's not good, that Nebraska is not good. But first of all, this is a rivalry game, and it goes back all the way back to the Big 8 days. Second of all, I think both schools believe that they should be better this season than what they were last year, especially Nebraska. I know Nebraska believes they're going to be miles better than what they were because they got bad quarterback play, and they think they should have won 8 to 9 games if they had better quarterback play last year. Well, they're supposedly going to have it this year, so we'll see. Colorado, we already know that they think they're going to be better. They just ask them, and they'll tell you. However, I want to see it on the field.
Yep.
This, again, big game for the Big 12. Big 12 versus Big 10. The perception is that Nebraska is better than Colorado. Well, let's go out there and find out. I think this is a game. Again, we talked about Colorado's first game, Fitz. This one's even bigger. They got to go win this football game. Whether it's on the road or not, it doesn't matter. You got to go win this football game if you want to be taken seriously.
Yeah. That Colorado non-conference is just one landmine after another, and a misstep could blow them up pretty easily. This is a game that Colorado can make a statement with. Beating North Dakota State, expected. Even though we don't necessarily expect it, you would think it would be expected. Beating Colorado State, well, you struggled last year, but it's expected. This game would be a little bit more unexpected. And I got to say this, from the outside looking in, Matt Rule seems to be doing everything right now in trying to rebuild that program. I think he was a great hire. We saw what he did at Baylor. He ran into some issues early on, but I think they got the quarterback. I think they've got an improved team, and they're building that culture. Again, it'll be that Nebraska culture against Deion and his athletes. So we'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like I said, I think it's a huge opportunity. Again, that game will be everywhere, all over television. It'll be a showcase game. It's an opportunity for Colorado to say, you know what? We are a better program than what we were. We need to be taken seriously. Whether you think Nebraska's good or not, that remains to be seen, or whether they even are good. Okay. But go win the football game on the road. And again, great for the Big 12 beating a perceived power in the Big 10. And I'll say perceived in quotations because Nebraska fans believe that they are great. Moving on. And then with this last one before we take our final break, Iowa State against Iowa. Look, Iowa's kind of had the best of this one here lately, even though they haven't been able to score a lot of points, but they've been able to win these games. I think Iowa State's got to take a stand this year, Fitz. It's time for them to win, to get back to, you know what, we're a better football team. We're a better football program. I think Iowa State's got to go win. Again, showcase game, Big 12 versus Big 10, big rivalry. I believe Iowa fans look down upon Iowa State fans. That perception is there. I don't think Iowa State fans like that at all, and they shouldn't like it at all. But go win the football game. That would be my thing. You don't want all this negativity coming your way, or maybe the big brother, little brother syndrome, whatever the case may be. Go win, and you don't have to worry about all that. And I think this is a chance for Iowa State to do that this year.
Yeah, this is a battle between two schools that look, they don't like each other, but it's also such different football cultures in terms of how they play the game. And Iowa's been in an advantage as of late because I just don't think Iowa State's been quite good enough or polished enough early in the season. This is a team that Matt Campbell typically brings along as the year goes. But they got to be ready for this. This is so winnable, and this would be a great statement for the Big 12. I think Iowa State's going to be good this year, and this is an opportunity early in the year to prove that, and hopefully score more than like 14 points, just to absolutely erupt with a scoring output of at least 17, which will blow most Big 10 teams away.
Yeah, if they can put 21 points on the board, they got an opportunity. Heck, they got an opportunity to win by double digits when you play against Iowa. Who knows? So, but I expect Iowa State to put up much. They always put up a fight. I just expect them to win this game. I think they're better. You know, a lot of people want to put, you know how that goes. They'll rank Iowa and say this or that or this or that. We get into the season, they lose 4 games, and it is what it is. I think Iowa State's better. They got a lot coming back. I think they got a lot to prove. And it's a gigantic game for the Big 12 Conference, again, to show that we are just fine the way that we are, and we're still playing competitive football. Going to take our last break here, and we will unveil our final 2 top Big 12 non-conference games of the season. We will be right back.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the vision is to build the world's largest consumer financial education and empowerment company. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to Studio 73.
All right, welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Appreciate everybody being in here and joining us. Again, we are counting down the top Big 12 non-conference football games of the season. We are down to our final 2. At number 2, or I guess technically we're down to the final 3, not the final 2. The number 3, we've got UCF at Florida. I debated on whether I put this one higher or not, Fitz. But at number 3, I like it here. Another thing is this game doesn't happen like the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. This game is in October, so it happens a little bit later on in the season. But you talk about a gigantic game for the Big 12 Conference. I mean, it is huge, the type of game that this is. If UCF can go and beat Florida, I think it would just speak volumes. And again, Maybe people think Florida's not very good. I don't know, but that doesn't matter. They're in the SEC. They're perceived to be very good. And if UCF can go and handle them, it'll just, I mean, that would set the conference up very, very well in the future and themselves.
I agree. Look, this is another game where Florida isn't very good for the SEC, but they'll still say they're much better than UCF. Now, look, we don't know what UCF is going to be this year. We think they're going to be improved. It just feels like they're going to get their footing a little bit better this year. And if that bears out early in the season, watch out, Florida. That UCF team's going to be athletic, and they're going to come in there with confidence and a point to prove. That's usually a formula for trouble for the home team, particularly if Florida's already lost a couple games. They normally would expect to win. This is a big game for the Big 12. I like where you put this. I think this is an enormous game because in the perception of so much of the national media, this shouldn't be a game.
Correct.
They just look at the emblem on the helmet and they think they're going to see Florida trounce UCF, and I don't see that. And if UCF can go into the swamp and win, that's a big victory for them and the conference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Enormous for the conference. So number 2 on the list. Now, this game, it's tricky because it's a non-conference game, but it's 2 teams that are in the same conference are playing. And it's Arizona going to Kansas State. Now, again, they're in the same conference, but the game, you know how football schedules are, scheduled years in advance, couldn't make some changes, or maybe they just didn't choose to try to make changes. They just said, we'll just leave it and deal with it. I like it. But again, it is a non-conference matchup, happens on a Friday night early in the season. And we will get to see how good both of these teams are. Arizona just getting into the Big 12 conference, in my opinion, have one of the top quarterback and wide receiver duos. If not, I definitely think they have it the best in the conference. It might be the best in the country. And we'll get to see that in Manhattan. It's going to be a big game, Fitz.
Yeah, I did some radio already today, and they listed this off as a key conference game, and I couldn't get a word in to say, it's not a conference game. It's very confusing to have conference opponents playing in the non-conference, but with realignment shifting so quickly now, there was no time to reschedule. I kind of had a hope that maybe all of these schools, because there's another Utah Baylor, I believe, is another in-conference, non-conference game, that they would all just kind of fill some slots on Washington State and Oregon State schedules, but that didn't work out. It was just easier to stay the course. And We'll see this game twice in a row as non-conference and then twice in a row as conference. So K-State and Arizona, the 2 Wildcats, are going to get paired up quite a bit here to open the new Big 12. And it could kind of start a little rivalry because this game's big. This game feels like the Big 12 kickoff, as I've said. Fox Friday will be there with their first episode of that new window they're debuting. It's going to be on a national stage on a Friday night. I'm fired up for this game because it'll be a great measuring point for both programs with the new Big 12 without it counting against them if they would lose.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just a big game. It's just a big game. Again, we can say it's a measuring stick, but it's also going to set off the rest of the season. Now, granted, it's college football, so anything can happen, but I believe both of these teams are going to be pretty good. And if you think that both teams are going to be pretty good, there's nothing better than a Friday night college football game early in the season to kind of see what the parameters are and both teams get their bearings and fans get their bearings. So I'm really, really excited for that one. Next up here on the list, lastly, I think this kind of speaks volumes to everything, is West Virginia and Penn State. I mean, that game, look, we talked about all the others and how big they were. If West Virginia can beat Penn State, and again, Penn State is ranked like preseason 8 in the country.
Right.
So whether you think they're good or not, people, again, believe that they're good. I kind of think Penn State feast off of not very good Big Ten teams, and then they can't beat the good ones. They can't beat Ohio State and Michigan. They can never beat them. And so they feast off of the other Big Ten teams that aren't very good, and now they perceive to be this great program. Okay, fine. But if West Virginia can beat them, it just says a gigantic statement. And this game is right off the bat, Fitz. Here we go.
You mentioned earlier in the show, Big 12 has some schools that competed at a very high level. Maybe not Ohio State or, Georgia level. And in the past, it's included Michigan, of course, because they won a national championship last year. But Penn State would be in that group that the Big 12 can close on. LSU would be in that group. There's many other schools in the Big 10 and SEC that the national media perceives to be top 10 because of the name and the emblem on the helmet. But here's an opportunity for a resurging West Virginia program to steal what would be an absolutely enormous victory for its program and for the conference to make a statement about where these are, because I think West Virginia is capable of winning this, but West Virginia is also kind of picked for the middle of this conference, while Penn State's picked towards the top of the Big 10.
Yeah.
That makes this a very interesting storyline around this game. I don't know that West Virginia will win it. I don't think they will, but boy, it would be huge for the Mountaineers and the 12.
Yeah, it would definitely be big for the Big 12. And the way that I see it, I don't think they're going to be favored, obviously, in the game, but I give them more of a chance just for what you said and what I've said earlier. I just think the perception of Penn State and how good they are, I think it's just overblown. And I also don't believe, or I do believe, that West Virginia is a little bit better than what people actually think they are. I think they got better in the offseason. I think they addressed some stuff. The confidence of last year had to help. I mean, regardless of what you think their schedule was last year, fine. But they still went out and won the football games. Nobody just handed them football games. That's not what happened. They went and won. And confidence, when you're dealing with kids between 18 and 22 years old, for the most part, I get it. There's some 24-year-olds and 25-year-olds out there. But for the most part, when you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, emotion is a huge part of their everyday life, especially in athletics. You get some confidence going after winning some games, who knows what can happen. Yep. And if they're able to pull this one off, Fitz, I mean, I think that's got to send some shockwaves through the country that says, number one, West Virginia is really good. But we know that's not what it's going to be. It'll be, well, Penn State's not as good as what we thought. That's what the perception will be. But for rational people, it'll be West Virginia is really good. And just maybe, Fitz, the Big 12 is still a good football conference. Maybe it'll say that.
I think people are going to be a little surprised at how competitive the Big 12 is. And I think a lot of national media is just writing off whomever gets in the playoff for the Big 12 will lose that game, their first game. And it's just the way it's going to play out. I just don't see that, Big B. I don't. I think this conference has some very good teams. And if you just look back at how competitive the conference has been with the non-upper echelon of the SEC. Again, we're not saying that anyone in the Big 12 is ready to play with Georgia or Alabama when they're at their highest, but everyone else, the Big 12 and ACC stands up tall against those programs and usually has a superior record overall in those matchups. So this is enormous. These opportunities have to be taken advantage of.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So it's good to see that West Virginia, like we mentioned, is taking that upon themselves to go and play this game, because a lot of people just wouldn't even play the game, much less, try to go and win the game. So good for them. I love what West Virginia is doing with that scheduling, like we mentioned before. Huge opportunity, not only for them and the Big 12 conference. So there you have it, folks. Those are the top 12 non-conference games. Again, get in that comment section. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. We're more than happy. We love going back and forth with you in the comments section. Remember to always like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. We appreciate it. We are still growing. We got a lot of stuff coming for you this fall with college football. So this is the Big 12 Insiders. We will see you soon.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.